Elohe ifle enye izje udenste, iwe avhe arye, exne essenle udete, endye aye avhe, isidede ute ixpe, onlye enye iglatenpe, orphe, ithe introduction ye, aye ilwe, ershe, aime, inscre ithwe uye, endye inle, obste, after ye, iste, intense. All right, as I said, I will now share my screen with you. It was a lot harder than you might imagine, speaking in Pig Latin for the entire introduction. But I believe it was all correct if you go back and take a look at it. Anyways, we'll get started with our lesson. Today, talking about contraception and NFP, Life in Jesus, L5D7. So we'll get started right away at the Catholic teaching on contraception. Again, within the Catholic perspective, see, sex is something that should be taken seriously, something that outside of marriage is considered wrong, and that it's dangerous to view sex as only a physical act, that it's something that represents who God is, which is why it's such a sacred idea. And so that contraception actually separates the very nature, the orders of sex, the procreative and unitive by natural law. It separates those from one another. So it changes the very nature of the act. It changes it from something that symbolizes God's unifying and life-giving power, and it changes it into something that is solely about the physical aspects of sex. It treats the gift of fertility, right, something that is beautiful, as kind of like a symptom to be managed, right, of saying that fertility is something that's bad or unhealthy, and that general viewpoint is, I think, is quite dangerous. It says, within marriage, it says, I give you everything I am except for, right, this part of me, except for this part of us that has the ability to lovingly create. And then you're not giving your entire self to that person. So from a Catholic perspective, it harms the spiritual life of the couple. Now, there are a lot of arguments in favor of contraception, but most of these arise out of an unhealthy view of sex, right? So whether that's providing contraception in these really poor, impoverished countries, again, that arises out of an unhealthy view of sex, a band-aid for this issue that you have kids, 12, 13, 14 having sex. This idea of, oh, well, if a young girl and a young guy are having sex, then they should be using contraception. Again, arising out of an unhealthy view of sex, in which we have to kind of ask ourselves, and coming from the other Catholic perspective, should these two people be having sex? So in the Catholic perspective, widespread use of contraception creates a lack of openness to life, which creates this idea that sex is no longer viewed as sacred, which creates more casual sex, which actually causes more unplanned pregnancies, which causes more sexually transmitted diseases, which can cause an increase in abortion, which can lead to widespread contraception. That there's a circular there that this widespread contraception just puts a band-aid on many of the issues rather than actually solving them. So the most common form of contraception is the birth control pill. And this is often hailed as a tool of female empowerment because it arose with the women's rights and kind of feminist movement of the 1960s and 70s, that these two kind of came about together. And so it's often hailed as this incredible thing for women. And that's kind of the narrative you see all over the media. But I really challenge you to delve a little bit deeper. This is something that interests you, to read some alternative views, even some alternative feminist views on the birth control pill. For one, it places the entire responsibility and the financial and medical consequences on women. There are many negative hormonal side effects. Whenever you're messing with a woman's hormones, there's a lot that can happen to that woman. Depression is a huge, depression and anxiety are two side effects that happen 20 to 30% of women who use the pill. there was a male birth control that didn't go through the testing phase. The FDA didn't allow it to be tested because it caused depression for too many of the men who it was being tried on. Well, that should tell us that there's a double standard here, right? That women shouldn't have to bear solely the responsibility of this idea of avoiding pregnancy. And as many of you have brought up in class, that doctors often prescribe the pill for any issue with a woman's cycle, whether that's endometriosis or polycystic ovaries, right? All these different issues, irregular cycles, that most doctors prescribe the pill for that. But the pill does not cure or solve these issues. If you actually look into what happens, the pill makes the body think based on the high levels of certain hormones that the body is pregnant, so it won't ovulate. When you're pregnant, you won't ovulate. You can't get pregnant while you're pregnant. So that's what the pill essentially does. And then it basically creates an artificial period in which an egg is oftentimes not even released during that time. So what you see a lot is, and I'm no expert on this, but it's something I've looked a lot into, but that the pill doesn't actually solve the root of these issues, which is the hormonal imbalance. It makes the period seem usual. It makes the cycle seem usual. But as soon as you were to stop taking the pill, the issues would arise. Not to mention it can really affect a woman's infertility. So let's say a woman has been on the pill since she was 13. She's on it for 12 years, and then she wants to have a kid. The heart of why she had an irregular cycle or why she had really painful period isn't solved by the pill. That'll still arise when she's 25 and now trying to have a kid. And she might really struggle to have a child because maybe she has endometriosis that could have been looked at then when she was 13. And so the pill kind of acts as a Band-Aid. And yet Catholic teaching says as solely a medication, the pill is morally acceptable, right? If you're using it just as something that's a medical treatment, then it is acceptable. But again, I encourage you to really read into this because there's a lot going on here that doesn't get disseminated within kind of the widespread media. So what about a couple who's married? Obviously, contraception for kids who aren't married, right? The church views that as wrong because they view sex before marriage as wrong. So what about a couple who is married but who wants to avoid having children at the moment? Well, there's something called natural family planning, or NFP, which is a method of family planning that's based on fertility awareness using naturally occurring signs and symptoms. So in a regular cycle, there are certain biological indicators that a woman is fertile. It's only in there's a period of time there's a period of time before ovulation in which that's the only time that a woman can actually be pregnant. And so what happens is couples actually track the fertile phases of the cycle, and then they abstain from sex, so they don't have sex during the time where a woman can get pregnant, which ends up being in the 30-day cycle about 6 to 9 days. Now, a lot of people bring up, well, what if the woman has an irregular cycle? Well, this actually tracking the irregular cycle allows doctors to actually be able to get to the heart of the issue of why that woman is having an irregular cycle, why there's a hormonal imbalance, or different things that they can do to treat that. If it is taught and used correctly, it's 99.5% effective to avoid pregnancy. So it is reliable if you're taught how to do it and if you can recognize those biological factors, which, again, there are objective ways to do that. So what are some of the benefits of natural family planning? Well, one, there's no side effects, right? You're not putting hormones into your body. You're not changing the chemical balances within your body just to induce an artificial cycle. It's green, right? There's no, right? It's environmentally friendly. It's safe, and it's inexpensive, and it's useful. It's useful because it actually couples who practice NFP are able to get pregnant when they are trying. They're able to get pregnant much more effectively because they have an understanding of the woman's cycle and of her fertility. Also, there's a shared responsibility. There's a mutual decision making. For NFP to be successful, the man and the woman must communicate about it. They must understand that this is something they're doing together. It doesn't, the burden of it doesn't just fall on the woman specifically. It raises the appreciation of intimacy. So couples, especially in that period of 6 to 9 days where a woman can get pregnant, they have to learn how to show love in non-sexual ways. And I think that's really important because oftentimes, as we talked about in class, sex can be used as kind of a crutch for showing love. There's many other ways to show love. So it teaches couples how to do that. As I said before, it's useful to achieving pregnancy. It creates an appreciation for fertility as something that is healthy, creates harmony with your body where you're not actively working against your body. This is the one that really gets me, is that couples who practice NFP have a divorce rate of 5%, because these things are what make a marriage work. These things are what make a relationship work. And the annual continuation rate is 89%. So 89% of couples who practice NFP for a year will continue to practice it, and that's higher than any other contraceptive. Finally, just want to end you with this quote from the American Academy of Family Physicians. This is the second largest group of doctors in the country. So this is not just like some random, small group out of some podunk church in the middle of nowhere who's saying this. This is a large medical, and they say it's effective and offers benefits that hormonal and barrier contraceptives cannot. No or low cost, ease of use, no systemic adverse effects, and no medication interactions. Safe for women whom hormonal methods are undesirable because of medical comorbidities. Empowers the couple in understanding fertility, increases relationship satisfaction, and is associated with lower rates of elective termination. More than 90% of 2-day users and their partners report being satisfied with this method. Some physicians may avoid recommending NFP because they think periodic abstinence will interfere with a couple's sex life. However, couples who use NFP have equal or more frequent sex compared with non-NFP users. That's a plus there too. Additionally, knowledge of fertility awareness can help a couple conceive effectively without the delay in return to fertility that occurs with some artificial contraceptive methods. If you stop using the pill, it can take sometimes up to 5-6 more months in order to be fertile again. So I know that there's a lot of information there. Again, I really encourage you, if this is something you're passionate about, this is something to try to start finding some alternative views on it, at least to be introduced to them. Again, the narrative constantly is that the pill can solve everything. And again, at times, I think it can be a useful medication. But to really read about the side effects, to read about the burden it places on women, and to read just about how it's really a Band-Aid to a lot of things. So as always, like, comment, and subscribe, and I look forward to discussing this in class with you.